Oh, politics was, you couldn't stop him in politics.
No,
And
no.
oh, many's the time I sat in that big house beside the Aga in the middle of the big room.
Indeed,
We're
indeed.
talking Tommy Elmore now of Warren Point. And there's a housing estate named after him
That's
down
right.
there
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, well, you guys, you had a big day recently, on a Sunday recently. It was in Rome for the canonization of Pope John Paul II. You went to it.
We did, yes.
What possessed you to go?
Well, we had been following John Paul. We had numerous trips to Rome. I had been going to Rome quite a few times on parish trips with our own priest, or curate at the time was Father Michael Crawley.
Yes.
He's canon now, and we got, you get hooked to,
Really?
you get into
Is
Rome.
you get into Rome.
It gets into your blood.
I suppose it does. I suppose it does.
Yeah, and so anyway, we decided we'd go to John Paul's beatification
Yeah.
first. And we
When
said,
did
well,
that happen?
That
was about
It's about five, 6 years
Yeah.
ago. And we went on our own. Well, we went really with a pilgrimage then, but we were staying, Father Crawley, Johnny Sullivan, a friend, and myself and John, we tagged on to the... So it was an experience then.
Of course, 6 years ago.
Rush and
Yeah.
push.
Yeah.
But we enjoyed it, and we said if we were living and spared, we would go back when he was canonized.
And you were, and you did.
And sure, here we got 2 popes.
Wow, in the
for-
one go.
In the one go.
You can never have believed it.
And Divine Mercy Sunday was the Sunday that was chosen. We
Yeah.
were waiting to see.
Are you a
when it
fan
was.
of Divine Mercy?
Well, I would have worked for the Mercy Nuns.
Yes,
And
yeah.
Mercy, yeah. We would be. We're not holier than thou, but we.
No, but you do your
We do
what's
our
right.
best,
You do.
hopefully,
John,
yeah.
were you, dare I use the phrase, dragged along, or did you go willingly?
No, we were willing, but to me and to us, it was a very special occasion because we had 2 popes going to be canonized, and those 2 popes were in high office during our lifetime.
Yes.
You know, it was someone that was way back years ago we didn't know, but and they were a great contribution to the Catholic Church and religion and all the changes that were made. You know, come back to
The council?
John the 23rd, the Second Vatican Council, and the changes, you know, changes in the liturgy. And the one special change that I would always have, you know, forgotten would be the role of women in the church.
Yes.
You know, and to encourage them and to be part and parcel. Because back in years gone by, I remember I was an altar server.
Oh yeah, you had never seen a girl with you.
Women weren't allowed on the altar.
And they always had to wear hats.
We were altar. There was altar boys. There was it wasn't altar servers.
Altar boys.
Altar boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was only years after that girls came along, and
Yeah.
it was only right, you know.
John, what do you think from Vatican II was the greatest thing? Of course, the Latin went and the priest turned to face
Turn
you.
around.
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah. Well, you felt you were more part of the service, you know, after Vatican II. The priest was facing you, and there was more participation, you know, because of the language. You spoke in English, and the prayers and the responses were all in English. So there was greater participation by the congregation than previously, where you just sat there listening to Latin and, you
Didn't
know.
know. Yeah. So the business of going, Catholicism is very important to you. It's in your hearts. I can hear it shining out of you.
It is. It's very important to us, and unfortunately, it's in decline for the last number of years, and I think that's a pity. You know, we look at attendance in our congregation at masses now, and it's hard to understand. You know, of course, times are different now. When we were children, you know, you had to go, but you became involved yourself. You know, as you grew up in your teenage years, you felt, you know, it was necessary to go, and you wanted to go, and
You wanted to go.
you enjoyed.
That's the important thing. You
Yes.
wanted to go.
Yeah.
Because too many people were going because we'll go on Saturday night to get it out of the way, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I know.
Which isn't, that's not the message at all.
And of course, prayer was very important then, and families, the family rosary. We couldn't get out to a dance or go anywhere without the rosary being said before we go. You know,
you're taking me, you're so beautifully taking me back into a wonderful time in my own life.
That's right.
Yeah.
In the
Of course.
house and
Surely.
people where it was important,
Yeah.
these things all were important. And the church in Omeath at the moment, you're strong enough in Omeath, aren't you?
Well, we are strong enough, but population has increased considerably in the last few years. But the congregation hasn't increased. You know, on special
On
occasions.
special occasion, now at Easter we had
Yes.
Easter and Christmas and
really
you know,
impressive at
Yeah.
Easter.
Yeah.
confirmation
Of course,
and,
there's
and
no-
communion. You've all
There's
the-
no better place in the world to be celebrating Easter than on the hillside overlooking Carlingford
I
Loch
know.
that is Omeath. Sure means it's got it all there.
And then we have a big occasion usually around the 10th of August, the Feast of St. Lawrence.
After now, you're
I'm
very
sure
own.
It's probably unique in Ireland anyway, that we had the old cemetery below the road and we have the new cemetery above the
Goodness
road.
gracious, yeah.
And they're practically bound full on.
But the ones in the
You know.
the new one, they have a better view.
Oh, they have, yeah.
Well, funny enough, there's a cousin of John's, and before he died, he knew he had cancer and he was
Yes.
quite sick. He said, "I want to be buried up on that hill.
Aye.
I
It
want
is.
to be buried up on that
That's a
hill."
good thought. It's a lovely
Yes,
thought.
indeed,
Now,
yeah.
tell me about the canonization. Take me through the going to Rome, and well, you flew into Rome.
Well, of course, we flew Ryanair.
Yes.
We arrived in Champino, and for the first time ever, we stayed in a B&B.
Yes.
And we went on our own accord, went free agents, and we stayed with a woman who is an Irish woman from Cork,
My goodness.
married to an Italian, and he can't speak a word of English. And she actually teaches English. So we had the nearest, a beautiful breakfast every morning, the nearest to an Irish breakfast
As you could
have.
get. Yeah.
And we did our own thing. We would know Rome quite a. I hope you would. We were just saying that you would never know Rome.
Yeah.
You would never see it all.
No.
But
You would know, and this is a question about Rome, since you're so knowledgeable about Rome. What station in Rome, railway station, do you go to get to Assisi?
well, the Termini is the main.
Is the main
Is
one.
the centre.
The Termini.
Yeah. There used to be 22 lines out of
Yeah.
Termini. I don't know. Probably has increased now, because where we stayed now, it was a B line on the metro,
Yeah.
and it was an extension from the Colosseum, we'll say,
Wow.
which is quite central as
Yeah.
well.
Is it a big city?
Oh,
It
it
is.
is.
Huge city.
Oh, a
Yes,
huge
yeah.
city.
You could get lost brave and easy.
Oh, no bother, but you can get back on track pretty easily as
quick,
well.
yeah.
The little street maps are just absolutely brilliant to have. And
So-
the metro takes you practically everywhere.
Everywhere. Now, the day, how many, you were there a few days before the canonization.
We arrived on Thursday morning very early.
So you had a few
about
days.
10:30, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was good Thursday. Everybody that, well, we anyway, when we go to Rome, there's quite a few little things we need to do. We need to do Mass intentions. We need to do the Holy Stairs on our knees for
Wow.
anybody that are sick
What's
or
the,
so.
tell me about that.
The Holy Stairs is over in St. John Lateran's, very close to St. John Lateran's Basilica, very close to the Irish College where we used to stay
Yeah.
for years. And there's, I don't know, actually many students are there at the moment, but there's quite a few students in the Irish
Yes.
College at the moment. Not all from Ireland, they're from over the world, whatever.
Yeah.
But the Holy Stairs,
What's the origin of the Holy Stairs? Why
They're
are they
the
called
holy-
that? Why,
the-
why are they holy?
well, they're called the Scala Sancta, and they are the actual stairs. Hopefully, we think it was proclaimed that Saint Helen took them to Rome. That's Saint Stephen's mother, and she took them from Jerusalem.
My
and they are the
goodness.
actual stairs that our Lord climbed
Walked
up.
upon.
Walked.
My goodness.
And,
Yeah.
and they're all worn, but they're
Worn
worn by
down.
people's knees.
Knees.
Because you start at the bottom and you
They're
climb
covered
up
by
on,
wood, you see,
Yeah,
and the wood is.
yeah.
on your knees. Up.
My goodness. And is it a huge?
It's a huge attraction. Yeah.
But I mean, how far?
Oh,
what
yes.
length have you to walk on your knees?
Maybe 30 steps, I'd say.
30 steps on your
Probably,
knees.
yeah, more,
Up-
yeah.
up the
And a
And
lot
with-
of people are, you go one at a time, one knee at a time.
And you say a prayer on
say
each
your
one.
prayer,
Yeah.
and somebody could be beside you, kissing every step, anything.
And your
You
request
know.
is granted when you get to the top. You know,
You'll be sure
you
enough.
know that your
You'll-
prayer has been answered.
It's been answered.
Your
In,
hope.
in whatever way God
Yeah.
wants to
Yeah.
answer it.
Yeah.
And sometimes He doesn't answer it in the way we want Him to.
I know.
But then He's got the better
But
brain.
then He knows best, doesn't
He knows best
We
at
hope.
the end of the day. So that all happened, and then came the big day. You awaken in Rome at the dawn of the day of the double canonization. What was the atmosphere in Rome that you wakened up to that morning?
Well, we got up really about 5:30, and the lady that we stayed at, she took us in her car up to a square very, very close to the Vatican, and we walked from there.
Yeah, and we thought we'd be going at that hour of the morning.
You'd be all right. There wouldn't be too many there.
In the Vatican Square. And
Yeah.
so when we got to there were a number of streets, leading up to the square.
Yeah.
And all those barriers were up and the police were there. Oh no, it's full up. You can't try the next one, try the next one. But we got fairly close. We didn't actually get into the square itself, but we were very close. And
At the bottom of it,
Yeah.
yes.
And of
Could
course,
you see anything?
There were screens.
Screens, you saw it on the
there were
screens, yeah.
yeah.
But you were breathing the same air
Yeah,
Well, the
as,
only thing
as
was,
Francis and the rest of them.
There was a lady beside us, and she was from the Lebanon, and she had gone to visit her daughter who lives in the Netherlands.
Yes.
And they decided to come. So they were beside us, and she took out her candle, she lit her candle, and we all, during Mass, it was something to see when you were locked in this street. It's a little side street down at the bottom of the square. You're locked in this, and when it came to the consecration, everybody, but everybody, knelt on the street.
It's beautiful.
Everybody.
It is beautiful.
And there was an awful lot of newspapers. I think people brought them to kneel on.
To kneel on,
And to
yeah.
sit on.
And the
And to
street,
sit
the
on.
street after was mass.
Mass and youth left
there.
yeah. So then you were there from kind of 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning.
We made it about
Yeah,
6.
yeah.
About 6,
Yeah.
and you got settled in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you bring your lunch with you?
No, the lady wanted us to take, but we bought a couple of croissants. The main thing you have when you go to Rome is your little street map and a bottle of water.
Yeah. That's all you need.
That's what you need.
Because you eat so well, the Italian fare in the
Well, you
evenings.
don't.
You'd be full.
Yeah. But, and then it went on quite a...
What time did it start? The actual business
The
begin?
Mass itself started at 10.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how many, you saw it on the screen, how many bishops and cardinals were there on the altar?
There were countless.
Countless, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
And could you identify on the screen Pope Francis? Could you see him?
Oh, yes,
of
very
course.
No
prominent.
problem.
Oh,
Very
God,
prominent.
He
yes.
stood out,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll then you see when you look at the Vatican, that you see the circular square. John the 23rd is on one side and John Paul is on the other.
Wow.
Huge big
Pictures
banners
up
Yeah.
on the windows.
there.
Goodness gracious.
So
the Mass went ahead.
The atmosphere was just electric.
Yeah. And did the crowd sing at any stage?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And were you
Yeah.
singing?
Yes.
You were going.
Yes. Look, I'll just tell you, it's anybody, you could cry, you could sing, you could laugh. Whatever takes over you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a moment, and not only is it a moment in history, it's a moment of a unique contact between earth and heaven.
Oh yes.
You know, and to have two saints in the one day.
Yeah,
Goodness
two
gracious.
saints in the one day.
Yeah.
And funny enough, when we went over, we arrived on Thursday morning, we went into the city around lunchtime, and we did the Holy Stairs and quite a few things because we knew the crowds that were about to come and you would be queuing everywhere after that.
Yeah.
So we went to Vatican City on Friday,
Yeah.
and we did a little bold thing. We gate crashed. We stood in with a group of Chinese.
That's all right.
And we walked with them.
They probably spotted you.
And we
Well, see,
walked
for
with
security
them.
purposes, it's just like an airport now. You have
yeah.
to go through security.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
In the Vatican City.
In the Vatican
Yeah.
City, yeah, to get into the.
And who are you
the-
searched by? Are you searched by the Swiss guards?
Well, there's not much of a search. You just
It's
go
just
through.
like the
you just go
airport.
through, yeah.
You know the way
you
you
go
put
through the
your-
little thing and
Yeah.
you through. And did you see the Swiss guards?
Oh,
we
yes,
did,
they're
yeah.
stood
They
at
were-
each
They're stood at
yeah,
each side.
yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
prominent.
So
yeah.
we went in and you see, it's not really known, but John the 23rd, his body is already on show.
Is
Quite
it?
a few years.
His
yes.
body?
His body, because they opened his coffin after 10 years
After he
and his
died.
body was uncorrupt. Exactly the same as when he died.
That was the start. Yeah.
Now they have covered his face in a little film of wax.
Yes.
But
yeah.
that was to protect it.
Yeah.
But his body is on show, and you can see his little red shoes.
Yeah.
It's something else.
Yeah.
It's something else. And there was a guide behind us when we were going in, and I was so, you have to live in Rome to be a guide.
Yes.
You can't be from any place
Yeah,
else and
yeah.
come to Rome and do a guide. Have to live in Rome. But this guide was behind me, and she was telling a group, turned out a man from Armagh.
Was in
Yes, was in
you
it.
can't escape home,
Because
you know.
I heard him saying, the next time I come back, I will ask you to tell me the names of all those saints. And
So
I
you
said,
recognise
she'll
the
probably
voice.
make them up anyway. And it turned out that he'd rented a cottage very close to us in our own Ballintask.
Back
yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
And she couldn't remember the name of John the 23rd.
Roncalli,
That his
wasn't that
name
it?
was Cardinal Roncalli.
Yeah.
He was
Angelo
Bishop of
Roncalli.
He was Bishop of Venice.
He
you
was,
know.
of course, yeah.
Now, John's mother would have great affiliation for him.
Why, your mother's still with you?
Oh,
yeah.
No, but she had great
She did
affiliation.
have in her
Oh,
day.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were
sure.
saying, like, we have a son called John Paul, our eldest
Yes,
son.
lovely.
And then we have a grandchild called John Paul.
Well, we christened him after John Paul was
Do you
elected, you know.
So it was funny that John's mother had great affiliation. And there they were, the two of them on the one day.
Well, it's very funny too, because on the day John Paul II was shot in the square,
Yes.
Yeah.
I was producing the BBC programme PM Ulster on the radio, and the news came through. And I thought, what am I going to do? I was the producer of the programme, the biggest story in the world at that moment.
Yes.
I phoned the Irish College,
Yes.
and I got an eyewitness,
Yeah.
and that put the eyewitness on my programme. And then the national BBC Radio 4 PM programme took my interview.
Yeah.
Oh.
And as a consequence of our success at that time, I gained promotion in the BBC and eventually became the head of Radio Current Affairs.
Oh,
So I owe
very
something
good.
to John Paul too.
There you are.
You
Yeah.
probably know what happened to the bullet that tried to shoot.
I know what happened to the gun because it's in the Vatican Museum.
Well,
what happened to the bullet?
The bullet is in a statue of Our Lady in Fatima,
In the crown.
in the crown, in Fatima.
In Fatima?
Yeah.
There was a little dent in the crown, and the bullet that was taken from John Paul's body fitted in exactly into the crown,
That's true.
and it's in Fatima
Because we were in Fatima
Goodness.
too.
because we saw
said-
that.
My
We were in
goodness.
Fatima as well.
What has the whole experience done for your faith and your religion?
Well, it certainly has added to it, you know.
Really?
Oh, of course it has, yeah. And then we did hear about the miracles of John Paul II as
Yeah.
well. And we also heard, we were talking to a priest, he said, did you not know that there was a miracle when he came to Ireland back in 1979?
Really?
There was a child had an incurable disease, and the child was put in the Pope's arms.
In Phoenix Park.
In the Phoenix Park, and was cured. Now, there's not much publicity of that.
No.
We hear of others. One had other diseases and they were cured.
Yeah. Funny enough, I was in Phoenix Park in that morning. I was reporting it for RTE.
Yeah.
I was still with RTE then. And I remember the moment when, away from the southern skies, a tiny pinprick
Yes.
coming closer. It was the papal flight to Ireland.
Helicopter, yeah.
And no, it wasn't a helicopter.
Oh,
this
the
was him
flight.
arriving.
Oh, right.
He was coming in. He was
Yeah.
coming into Ireland. He was just arriving in
Just
Ireland.
arriving on that
And his
time.
flight was flying lower. This great jet, this huge jet, flanked by the aircraft of the Irish Air Force, wingtip to wingtip almost,
Yeah,
flying lower over Phoenix Park than any aircraft had ever flown before.
Yeah,
And there he was coming in. And everybody looked up, and I have to say I shed a tear. It was an emotional moment.
Yes,
Oh
of
yes,
course.
You know,
yeah.
to think that this was occurring is just
Yeah.
an amazing
Yeah.
thing.
Well, that's this emotion sort of comes over you. You don't know where it comes from.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Cardinal Sean Brady. When we went to the John Lantern Square on the Thursday, we went to the Irish College. No, on Friday we went to the. On Saturday we went back into the city, and we decided we'd call to the Irish College because it's quite welcoming.
Is it
Just
really?
press
Yeah.
the button on the gate.
And they say, hello, come in.
And and I said, we're just calling. He said, come on in. So the first man we met was Cardinal Sean Brady. He had
Goodness
just
gracious.
arrived the night before. And the Irish College had invited all the
Lovely.
Irish pilgrims in Rome for the canonization to a mass in a little church,
Basilica of
Basilica of
Santa Maria.
Santa Maria
just down
Dominica.
from the.
and it's just down a little lane behind the Irish College, and we all had Mass there at 4 p.m. on Monday. So that was the final.
And Cardinal Brady, he gave the homily
He
and was very interested.
Yeah.
Very
there were about
interesting.
30 priests gone celebrating, but he
Yeah.
talked about the Irish College, and at one time we had 40 Irish colleges around the world.
My goodness.
Now we have 3.
Because we were the island of saints and scholars.
Yes,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
college and sainthood
Yeah.
went hand in hand. Well,
Yeah.
at the moment, if you were to find the headquarters of the Society of African Missions,
Yeah.
with whom I have a great affinity, in Rome, the world leader of the SMA is a Cork man, Faulkner O'Driscoll.
Yes.
He's there, over there. So we still...
And the rector in the Irish College now, we stayed, when I went first, I stayed in it when Cardinal Brady was rector in the Irish College.
Yes.
He was rector there. That's how I first met him.
There are only 3 Irish colleges now, Rome
Now.
and Paris and Louvain.
Yeah.
And Rome was the only one where there are seminarians.
Do you know, if you had to wish for 3 Irish colleges in the world, you would say Rome, Paris, and Louvain, wouldn't
Yes,
you?
yes.
And that's what Father
Lovely.
Crawley, he trained there, and that's
Yeah.
why he has such great interest. And when he's there, he takes it to all these places of interest, and he enjoys,
It's in his blood.
acting as the guide for us.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And you're back now. We talked earlier about the tradition of the rosary and things like that. Would you guys still say the rosary at home, or is that a thing of the
yes,
past?
well, before our own service, I'm sacristan in my own church, no means.
Good girl.
I'm there.
Fine new church you've got.
Practically
Yes.
20 years.
Are you? And you would have had the old church then as well.
No.
Was it
I've-
20 years there?
Oh, it is, yeah.
Where would you tell me?
87.
Would you ever tell me where time goes?
Well, just where time goes is right.
Goodness
Yeah.
gracious. It's
And
amazing.
anyhow.
Well, the rosary is recited in the church before Mass.
Before Mass
Yeah,
every
boy, isn't
morning,
it?
yeah,
Isn't that
mostly,
lovely?
yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you with some authority that that Limerick Junction platform is 2 rosaries long. Because I was stuck there one day, I had 2 hours to put in, and I'd been
Yeah.
given a pair of rosary beads by Father Tom Walsh of the SMA. Tom Curran of the SMA, Father Tom Curran of the Society of African Missions. And
the fellow
Tom
from
Walsh
Rome?
is there as well. Tom was his mate down in Cork. He was in Nigeria
fellow
for
from
years. And now he's back in Ireland because of the ill health of his father. And he stays here. But they'd given me these lovely rosary beads made out of Connemara marble.
Yeah.
And there I was walking up. So I said, I'll say that. That's it. So by the time I got to the one end and back, got 1 rosary said.
But
So that's how I put
when
the
we were
time
coming
in.
home on the plane, there was a lady sitting on the seat opposite us,
Yeah.
and she never quit saying the rosary from start
Oh,
to
yeah,
finish,
yeah. So
Yeah.
many rosaries from Rome to Dublin,
Yeah.
I'll tell you another story about Nigeria, actually. It was lovely. Well, it's an interesting story. The last time I was flying out to Abuja, it was Dublin, London, Abuja. And we were about 20 minutes out from, a bit more, about an hour out from Abuja Airport in the centre of Nigeria. I was going out to my schools there that I work very closely with and in. And something happened on the plane. I was the only European on board. The rest were all African folk, Nigerian folk, who are an immensely spiritual people.
Yeah,
Great
yeah,
spiritual people. And I'm said, everybody, suddenly for some reason the plane dropped out of the sky. Literally
Drop down.
dropped from there to there, maybe about 200 meters it seemed. And it
Yeah.
seemed like it was going on for 5 minutes, but it only would have been 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And as soon as it happened, every voice on the plane road, "Oh, Jesus, save us, Jesus, save us, Jesus, save." There was this cacophony of prayerfulness
Sure, yeah.
filled the plane at that
Yeah,
moment.
yeah.
It just was very, very...
They knew
very-
he was there then.
They knew he was there. Well, they would always. They would. The Nigerian people are
Yeah.
hugely spiritual people,
Yeah.
lovely people too, and it's all good. So listen, we thank you for coming in. You've been great. You'll get this now at home when we put it back out at 10:30, so you'll see it. You'll see your interview.
Well, thanks very much.
Is there anyone you want to say hello to anywhere across the whole world?
Well, we'll
'Cause
just
they'll get
say,
you now.
like we got our Mass said in Rome for our friends, relations, and all our neighbours. And
That's as good as it gets, isn't it?
yeah,
And
hope I didn't
we'll
leave
be going
anybody out.
back.
You'll be going back.
Oh,
God
please,
bless
God,
you. You're
please,
good people.
God.
Thanks.
And it's so joyful to remember your brother Tommy.
Yeah, okay.
He was a very important person in my
Thank
life
you.
and a
Thank
total
you.
gentleman.
Yeah,
A wonderful man. Andrew will play some music now.
that's life.
Thank you.